Hey everybody, and welcome to today's devotion. It's Wednesday of Holy Week. Glad that you're with us. Hope you're doing well and being at peace internally and doing things to reduce any anxiety or fear that you might have at this time. And if there's any way that we can help you as a church, don't hesitate to ask. You're in our prayers. So what we've been doing is going through Holy Week and seeing what Jesus was up to each day of Holy Week before Easter, and he was in Jerusalem. We know Tuesday's lesson was really long. He did a lot of conflict with the religious authorities and a lot of teaching. Wasn't able to get to all of it yesterday, but then he angered the people so much, the authorities, that again we're told that they're plotting to kill him. On Wednesday's activity, we only hear about one thing that happened after the plot to kill Jesus, and that is this incident at Simon the leper's house. I've always been curious why they call him Simon the leper. It's, did he have leprosy? All I know about the culture at that time and everything is that lepers were always banished to leper colonies. So maybe it was Simon the former leper, and just couldn't shake that that designation of what he used to be. It's just kind of a curious little detail. Simon who had leprosy. Maybe Jesus had healed him in the town of Bethany outside of Jerusalem. So they're there, they're having dinner, the disciples and Jesus, they're gathered, and this woman comes in unannounced, unnamed, we don't know her name, and she opens this alabaster jar of pure nard that's very costly and expensive. Fills this globby kind of thick oil is what it was, and pours it over Jesus's head. You can just imagine these big globs of oil kind of streaming down his beard, and it is very aromatic and fills the whole room up with this smell. Well, immediately the disciples erupt. The whole place goes kind of bonkers for a while. What is this? Who's this woman? Why is she doing this? What a waste. Do you know how much that is worth? And it could have been sold, and you could have done a lot of good with it. And everybody is all over this woman. And Jesus says, leave her alone. She's done a good thing. She gets it. Essentially, whenever the gospel is told, it will be told whenever and wherever it's told in memory of her. Well, what would make Jesus say that? Well, think a few things. Jesus identifies it as she's anointing my body for burial. Now, interestingly, Jesus has been talking about he's going to be crucified several times, 3 times in the Gospel of Mark, and the disciples don't want to hear it. They put it away every time. They don't have any room for that kind of talk about sacrifice, and this woman gets it. Jesus says she's anointed my body for burial, that she understands, she gets what he's doing, that he's sacrificing, and she makes her own sacrifice, this expensive gift, and pours it on him. Now, one of the things that's going on in the text is she anoints him for his burial, Jesus says. Anoint is a loaded word. You might know it from the 23rd Psalm. Thou anointest my head with oil. Well, anointing is also the word that's used for when they christen a king. When a king comes to power, it's part of the ritual, this anointing ritual with oil. And it's the anointed one is also the term for Christ. So she recognizes him as the Christ, the one who sacrifices. It's not about imposing power. It's not about forcing your way on anybody, but about sacrifice and the example that he taught of nonviolence, of love, of compassion. So she's the one who gets it. She's the one who, whenever the gospel is told, it will be told in memory of her. She's the first model disciple in the Gospels. She gets it, where all the chowderhead kind of disciples of Jesus are fumbling around. They run away on Thursday at the moment of truth, but she gets it. So there's a few takeaways from all of this. One is just how impressed I am with her vulnerability, that she goes into this room of all these guys, does this act where she knows she's going to get criticized and blamed, but it was what was on her heart, her way of expressing herself for Jesus. This beautiful, beautiful moment that he receives as a gift, but other people don't get. And I've been looking a lot at social scientist Brene Brown's work. She talks a lot about the power of vulnerability. She frequently says, you can't show me one act of courage anywhere that doesn't require an amount of vulnerability. You've got to put yourself out there. The way that anything that great ever gets done or meaningful gets done involves some vulnerability and some risk. And so she models that for us. So that might be something to think about as you go through your day, is your vulnerability. The other thing I love is that, this talk about sacrifice, and the disciples are worried primarily, and Judas especially, worried primarily about money. But she's not involved in the sacrifice. And so there's this beautiful thing that we have right now where we can show that we're more interested in the sacrifice, in this pouring out, as she poured out, and not so much about the pressures that we're feeling right now to maybe hoard or just think about our own private family or our own situation, but to be more generous and expansive than that. So maybe she can help to inspire your thinking about what does it mean for you to be self-sacrificial in a pandemic, in a time such as this. And maybe it's just the sacrifice to kind of reframe, staying inside, wearing the mask, doing the protections to help other people. And of course we think about our healthcare workers and those who are doing essential jobs and putting themselves at risk for others, sometimes not out of some great noble purpose, but just because they're trying to put bread on the table and they happen to work in an industry where they're needed right now. So our prayers for them. And the last thing that I want to talk about is how she could have just poured a little bit on Jesus, but she broke the jar open. She didn't hold anything back. It was this kind of all-out, full commitment moment. I know sometimes in my commitments, I'd rather just kind of be a little more hesitant, put a toe in the water, so to speak, or with this metaphor, to kind of spritz a little perfume on, or my commitment. I'll just try a little bit. But this passage really challenges us to think, what would it mean for us, for you, to be fully committed to the ways of Jesus, of compassion, of generosity, of nonviolence, of forgiveness, of mercy, of helping those who are less fortunate than you? What would it mean to be fully committed to sharing hope and good news? What would it mean for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable in expressing your fears and where you really are, and in putting your prayers up there to God in the most honest way that you can? I think this woman is very important to our faith formation, and I'm glad that on Wednesday the whole day is devoted to thinking about her and how she can be an example for us. So go back, read the story, Mark 14, 1 through 10, and we'll be back with another devotion tomorrow, everything that happens on the very active day of Maundy Thursday. So God bless you, be well, stay in touch. Goodbye.